So I was born and raised in a Christian home, like right out of birth, dedicated to God. My parents made sure that we knew the Word of God like the back of our hands. They wanted to make sure our foundation wasn't on the church, it wasn't on people, it wasn't on them. It was just straight up on Jesus and what was in the Bible. So back when my brother was in 6th grade, I was about 8 years old, and his youth pastor was talking to these 5th and 6th graders about porn a lot, his porn addiction. My brother never knew what that was, and so he came home and did what we all did, which was look up what we don't understand. Unfortunately, this developed an addiction for him, and he ended up roping me into it by saying, "Hey, Trin, come look at this." And unfortunately, it was same-sex porn. There was a lot of confusion because an 8-year-old doesn't know how to rationalize these things very well, to where I was like, well, this is what he's watching. Other people are watching it. That means that this is what sexual attraction is. This is what is considered attractive. And that kind of turned my brain into saying that women are sexual objects and they were meant to be sexual objects. And so I kind of started struggling with that idea of, well, this is what I'm supposed to think, so this is what I see in women now. And so the feelings were there, the lust issue was there, and therefore the whole sin issue was there. And so what would end up happening is that I would see another female, and I was like, if I thought she was attractive, I could easily just switch her into that image. And it just became a really bad and lustful habit that I just couldn't seem to get a hold on. I started to develop hatred for myself because I was like, well, I'm an issue. This is an abomination towards God. So I felt like I had to kind of like keep to myself, hide away, not tell anyone, and basically keep everything about me a secret, because if I said one thing, everything might slip. And the only place that I found real comfort was when I was around 16 and I entered my first year of college as a culinary student. And they were all weird, they were all fun, and I was just like, I am fitting in here, except for their worldview, which ended up straying, like I was going one way, they were going another way. And so they would say one thing about their sexuality and how you should do what you want to do, and they were like sleeping around, all this good stuff. Of course, I'm like the youngest in the class, I'm 16, and they were like, oh, you haven't had sex yet? You haven't done this, you haven't done that? I'm like, no. So after I exited my first year of college, I also had my first job at a movie theater where I met my now husband, Devin. And I think after about a year of us dating, his family invited me on a family trip to Panama City Beach. And unfortunately on this trip, we didn't realize that there were people we didn't know were invited. And unfortunately, one of those women ended up sexually assaulting me on that trip. Unfortunately, at the time, I also considered that it was my fault that it happened. Like, what if I had worn something different? Or maybe I should have stayed around these people, or I should have just known. And it started kind of like spiraling into this idea of maybe I have to be with a woman. Like, I've now been violated by one. I have to be with women. And I started getting into this really bad hole of depression and being very suicidal. I didn't feel loved. I felt dirty, and like, there was just no way that I could really come to my family about it, come to Devin about it, come to God about it. I didn't have a church community to come to about it. And so it was just me. I became an island. It was almost like all the issues with my sexuality that I was putting on the back burner, like came full, like all the way to the front and started boiling over. That whole year of 2019, Devin was moving forward and I was still in the same place. And everything just kind of like came to a head when he proposed to me. And while like I was definitely in the high of the moment, after we got home, I was like, I'm not worth this. And I just felt stuck in all the bad places in my life and none of the good. And so I was attracted to him. I wanted to marry him. I knew I wanted a life with him. But I thought if I marry him, everything that I feel about women would just go away. I did go through with the marriage. We did this whole thing, and I still hadn't said anything about how I was feeling about my sexuality. After we got married and after I started counseling, I went to the woman who counseled my brother through his porn addiction, and she's the one that first heard about everything from the porn to the same-sex attraction to the sexual assault. But it was just such a change for me to start understanding that I am not my faults and that God made me to be more. And it just turned my outlook on God, on people, on myself. And I just started understanding like God takes beauty from ashes and he can shape anything into anything he desires. And Sitting here now, I can honestly say that I have been set free from the lust and the attraction that I've had for women over the years. And honestly, just the love and acceptance that my family had for me, and knowing struggles that other people had in the family about the same stuff. And it's realizing that there was so much heartache and pain that could have been avoided had I not let hatred and shame speak over me. So after 10, almost 11 years of just kind of struggling through this, I have ended in this place where, one, I'm married and I have 2 wonderful boys. And I'm in a great community of people that love me and that I love as well. Just like any other sin, coming out of this is not an easy fix. And if you don't have somebody to lean on, if you don't have someone that you trust and that loves you and that is here to disciple you, to lean on, it's going to be so much harder. And again, you can avoid years of heartache and of hurt and of pain if you just find that somebody that you can talk to, because we're not meant to do life alone. Healing isn't linear, and this path isn't linear. And redemption from sin isn't linear either, but just know it all comes from Jesus. It all needs to start there.